In today's video, we're going to be going over how to make awesome backgrounds for your comic. Now, I don't necessarily think backgrounds are super important in comics. I would say it's about fourth after story, readability, and line art of your characters. And I would say backgrounds are maybe like a fourth or fifth. But backgrounds can definitely make your art look a little bit better. For me, particular, I feel like my line art of my characters isn't that good. But paired with a decent background, it makes the whole thing a lot better. It can definitely be a little bit time consuming. But in this video, I'm going to show you pretty much a really fast way to do it that a lot of people use. And adding a little bit more flavor to it, I guess, and give you kind of a couple more ideas on what you can do to make your backgrounds pop. So, of course, we'll be using Sketchup, kind of the bread and butter program of making backgrounds fast. It is a paid program. I do use the free version. It's called Sketchup Make 2017. If we go to the URL over here, this will be in the description down below. Make sure to grab the Make 2017 version, and then make a Trimble account while you're here if you don't have one already. There's limited stuff you can do with this program, but it's pretty much free. You don't really have to pay anything. I think there is a licensing fee, like if you make so much money off a background like this, you have to pay. But for most hobbyists, you really don't have to worry about it until you're at a professional level. So we're going to go ahead and just get rid of this guy. Left click delete. And then we're going to go to 3D Warehouse. This is our best friend in SketchUp. Let's go ahead and load it. We're going to make a quick just city image, like a nighttime city. So we're going to just search city, enter. And by default, it always goes to products. There's a couple decent things in here. I've never really looked too hard. It's more for if you're going to make your own models, which I might make a video about in the future because there are certain things I want to do for an upcoming comic. But typically you're going to go to models right here. You're just going to kind of search and find one you like. I think I was looking at this one previously. Yep. So just click that to download, load directly into the model. Yes. Takes a couple seconds here. All right. And now we're in. So there's a lot of ways to navigate around SketchUp. Again, I'm not a professional by any means in this. I think this SketchUp is mainly used for construction. I had a old roommate who used it a lot in his construction classes, and like architecture and stuff like that. So again, I'm not an expert, but I know enough to get by, I guess. So there's a lot of ways to navigate around the program. There's a really cool way I found out later. If you go to tools or if you go to camera and click walk, it actually kind of maps it and mirrors it to be like a video game where you move with WASD and move around with or you look around with the mouse. So that's kind of cool. I think that this tool right here, the pan tool, is good enough to kind of just do that. And then of course, scrolling in and out. And then if you hold down the middle mouse button, it does an orbit. With those three things, that's pretty much all you need, I think. You can kind of experiment however you want, but that's pretty much all I use. So we're going to go into a good spot where we want to kind of take a picture, kind of. So I want to like look at the skyscrapers here and then get like this skyscraper in the kind of foreground here. Maybe something like that. Maybe an angle looking up a little bit more. Yeah, that looks kind of good. So you could just take a screenshot right there. And I don't mean an actual screenshot. I mean the export. We'll go over that in a minute. There's a couple other things you can do that I like to do. If you go to camera and then you go to field of view, it gives you a new tool to kind of mess with that. So if you want to make something a little bit bigger in the foreground, that's how you would do that. So something like that, maybe. We might have to mess around with that a bit more, but something like this kind of looks cool. Yeah, I think that would be good. We probably have to get rid of that in post because it looks a little weird. that's pretty much it. There's another cool thing you can do if your computer is up for the task. If you go to view, you can press shadows and it'll actually cast some shadows so you don't have to draw that in. We're not going to do that. I've had some issues where my computer kind of crashes. I have a decent computer. It's just I have the new MacBook and they have these new chips and yeah, it's a whole thing. But anyway, we'll just leave it like that. So we have to go to Windows Styles, open up the Styles windows to kind of convert it to line art. So right now it's just the basic in model one. There's going to be a whole bunch of different kind of line sets you're going to want to mess with. The one I like the most is photo modeling, and it's just generic lines. Because my line art is very crisp and very like clean. It kind of looks bad since I don't know how to draw very well. But eventually, once I know how to draw, it should look good. There's another couple ones, sketchy edges. I know a lot of people like using that. There's a lot of different ones. Just kind of find the one that kind of fits your art style the most. There's a lot of different things you can edit. You can kind of lower the detail, make it smaller, all that good stuff. A lot of people can blend them too if they don't like certain ones. And how you do that is if you get two different ones and then you export them. And then you use Photoshop to kind of blend them, or Clip Studio, just kind of put them both at 50%, and that kind of does the trick. But for me, photo modeling, that's really all I need. It's good enough. So we're going to go ahead and change that color, put this on screen to black. And there's a couple other things you can change. You can make that transparent if you want, that's fine. We're going to do something about it anyway. Sometimes if you're using a different method to export it, you can get rid of the sky and ground, all that stuff. Sometimes you might see random grid lines show up, so that's how you get rid of them as well. But I think that's good. I like this style. We're going to export it. So if we go to File, Export, 3D Graphic, 2D Graphic, my apologies. So now we'll just pick somewhere to save it. There is a couple other ways you can actually export it as, with the free version at least. If you export it as a 3D model, you can export it as a .dae, then import it to Blender, and then import it to Clip Studio. That sounds like a lot of steps, but you can actually just export it as an .obj if you have the paid version of this, and then you can kind of skip the whole Blender step. But if you were wanting to export it into Clip Studio, we may make a separate video about that if enough people want it. And I don't use it that often, but I use it often enough, probably once or twice a chapter, I would say, just to kind of see where my characters are in relation to the backgrounds, or if like the background's kind of important, like they're at a table, for example. But for this, it's good enough. All right, so now we're in Clip Studio. Everything I'm going to do, I'm going to try to keep it not stuff you have to do in the EX version. There's a lot of cool things you can do with the EX version. With line extract. I might make another video about that because there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with like photos and all that. And a lot of this stuff is just going to be generic photo editing. So you can do this in Photoshop or whatever have you. So we're going to go ahead and open up our PNG. Here we are. So that's kind of big. It wouldn't really work well in a Webtoon, but oh well, we're just gonna kind of make a background. It's your job to kind of figure out how it works panel wise. So that's pretty much it for our line art. I could have shown how to add the quick coloring, but that's fine. We're going to be going over how to color it really quickly. Now you may be thinking you just do this and just start, doing that. I mean, you would obviously make another layer, but we're not going to be doing that. That would take way too long. So a method I've been using is kind of just, after watching this anime called The Great Pretender, great anime. It's on Netflix actually as well. The backgrounds are really cool. They're really like very distinctive and they look really weird, which actually makes them look good. And when I was watching that, I was like, yeah, why do I have just basic backgrounds? I don't want just basic backgrounds. I want something different. So think outside of the box when you make backgrounds. And and still try to make them look good, I guess, what I'm trying to say. What I've been doing is I've been using a watercolor. So opaque watercolor. And then we'll go to our layer here. Where is it? Our layer disappeared on us. There we are. So we'll make a new layer, put that on top. We're going to make this multiply just so we can see our stuff. So if we didn't do that, it wouldn't show up. Like that. Let's go back to multiply in our new layer. And I've actually had a lot of fun doing this. I used to hate doing backgrounds, but ever since I've started doing this and making it kind of fun and just kind of random, I've actually had a lot of fun making backgrounds, which is crazy if you think about it. So we kind of just lay on basic colors. And so I'll kind of speed through this and just kind of show you, we'll kind of cut to after I'm done. But we're just going to throw on basic kind of colors for everything here. And if it's not outside the line, who cares? So we'll go ahead and throw some basic colors down and then we'll go from there. All right, so we got our really basic colors down. I kind of went heavy on the dark blues because I think I'm going to do like a nighttime scene. And I know I said don't color outside of the lines, but I just kind of, I don't want to be too outside of the lines. I meant that more of like right here, like that's kind of not really close at all. Kind of like more like that. But for like, this is going to be the sky up here. So I can be a little bit closer for that. So that would be pretty much it for the hard part. Now comes the really fun part, I think. This is the part where you kind of just throw random colors in. I definitely took this idea from Great Pretender. Yeah, so like the way they have it is like they would have like random colors. So if you go like pink and then just like, you know, and then fill that with pink or whatever. Something like that. That's kind of what they did. And I'm going to try to experiment with that too. Because that kind of looks cool. But what I've been doing is kind of just throwing in some random colors, mostly like primary colors like red, yellows, and blues work just kind of everywhere. And you can kind of think about it. So this is like a grassy area. I would throw in some yellows like that. Something like that. Maybe throw in a yellow there. We'll definitely make it a lot more yellow because that's kind of signifies lights. But we'll do that in post. Right now we're just gonna have fun and throw some random colors. Throw in some reds, maybe not much right there. Bunch right there. Something like that, something like that, something like that. We'll throw in some blues to kind of mellow out some stuff. And I haven't done anything crazy yet. I haven't done like purples or anything other than like base colors like that. But I've pretty much only used kind of just basic colors like that. So it definitely kind of gives it an abstract feel, and we're definitely not done yet. But you kind of see what I'm going through here. And so now, once we have all of our kind of colors laid down, we're going to get our blur tool and then just kind of blur it into oblivion, just so all the colors kind of mesh a little bit better, because right now it's very sharp sometimes. So now we kind of just want to get that. I have it set to certain intensity, and we're just going to kind of go over, and you don't want to over blur it because they can kind of get rid of some of the color you want, the sharp change of color. So we'll just kind of go everything here. All right, so now we got that blended in. There's might be other spots you want to blend a little bit more, but I think this will be good for now. And then we're gonna make the sky real quick. I'll just do a couple quick things. I usually just do a dark blue. And we'll make sure it's behind that. Yep. And then we'll just go back to our watercolor. Make sure it's a little bit bigger. Probably need a little bit more dark blue. Just kind of give us a base for that. We might have to erase some of it down here, but that's fine. So we got a nice little dark blue, and then I like to throw in some purple, because skies are awesome. And if it was more of a dusk kind of for a sunset kind of thing, you throw in some oranges and all that good stuff. And then we might throw in some blacks, but we'll make it a little bit more black later. And then we're going to get our best friend, the blur tool again. I want to bump it up a bit and just kind of blend it all together, make it one big mess. And it looks like the blend tool actually kind of fixed it towards the bottom there, so that's good. We might throw in some more color right there, looks like. And then blend it again. All right, so it's looking all right. I mean, it's very abstract. That's kind of the goal. I think we're gonna actually erase that right here just because that's a little too much oversplash. We'll throw in some more color here and blend it. Yeah, it's very abstract, and that's kind of what I'm going for. It's kind of just, it pops. It looks very abstract. There's no better word for it, unfortunately. So we'll finish up the sky. What I like to do is, if you go to edit, tonal correction, first thing I do is change the contrast, make it a little bit sharper. Makes it a little bit darker. It's a little too dark. Maybe something like that. Yeah, we need it to be a little darker. And then if you go to tonal correction again, hue and saturation, this is going to be key for everything too. Just not even background, it's just art in general if you've never used this tool. So we kind of mess around with that, see what we like it at. Something like that. That looks pretty good. We might have to kind of, it's banding around there, so we'll go back to our blur tool and kind of fix it up a little bit. And then of course you gotta add stars, because it's not a night sky without stars, right? So make a new layer. I use the droplet tool right here, put it to white, and you can mess around with all these different settings. Oh yeah, it's looking real good. It's more up here. Make sure there's no stars on the building, because that wouldn't make any sense. You might want to add some more there. Definitely lower the brush a bit. And it doesn't look like they actually hit any buildings. Great. And then with my stars, you can kind of leave it like that, but I like to just add a soft Gaussian blur, just to make them look a little distant, not like super crisp, because they usually are kind of have a little halo around them like that, something like that maybe. Very subtle. We can do a little bit less actually, something like 4. All right. And then let's go and fix our city, because right now it's kind of basic colors, because that's what we did. So if we go back to our tonal correction, this time we're going to go just with the hue, saturation, luminosity. We're going to turn it down because it's a city. And we're going to brighten it up. Maybe that's what saturation does. We can kind of make them a little bit more distinct like that. And it looks very muted right now. It looks very like dull. That's what luminosity does. So if you go to tonal correction, contrast, we can pump the contrast up, and that should fix it. Too much will kill it. Make it a little brighter maybe. Yeah, it's kind of just fine tuning what you like the most. Something like that. So this would be kind of like a city at night if there was no lights on. So now we'll add post. This is kind of like other stuff you can do. If you were just making a quick background, just a quick, oh, we're in a city. Here's a city. That might be good enough. Honestly, that's usually what I do. But if you want it to be a little bit more in depth, if you're going to have it be a bigger panel, you can add all this extra stuff that we'll go over. So another thing I like to do is with all my line art too, is I actually have this macro set to line blur. Basically what it is, I duplicate my line art and then rasterize. I think I don't have to rasterize this one because it's already a raster layer. Usually it's a vector layer with my line art. And then I add a kind of subtle Gaussian blur to it, just to kind of give the line a little bit more depth. You can go overboard like that. It kind of makes them look a little weird, but just kind of mess with that. Kind of just makes it a little bit sharper and a little bit more clean, I think, if you get it at the right spot. And it definitely is very subtle. Like you don't notice it if I were kind of switched off like that. But I think it definitely looks a lot better. So that makes the line art look a little bit better. And now we'll add some lights, kind of like a little After Effects, because, you know, some people might be awake and have their lights on. So we'll add a new layer. We're going to make all the lights kind of like a light yellowish. So something like that, maybe. Then again, we're going to get our soft highlights or our soft airbrush and kind of figure out some spots where to put it, like somewhere like there. That looked like that window was open with the yellow, just kind of where it happened to be. All right, so now we got all these ones. It's looking a little bit better already. I actually missed these ones over here. Let's add a couple one while we're at it. All right. And you could probably just leave it at that. That'd be fine. What I like to do is switch it to a glow layer like that. It's very subtle. And then you can kind of mess with the opacity. But it does make a difference. And then, of course, Gaussian blur, because that is my best friend. Because if your art's not good enough, just blur it, and it might be good. So we'll kind of mess with that and just kind of give it a little bit more oomph, I guess. Kind of like show that the light is radiating. We can do a little quick comparison. It's, again, very subtle, but I think it kind of sells it a little bit more. So we can kind of mess with the opacity again. I think full opacity looks fine with the Gaussian blur now. And then we're going to add another glow layer to kind of just show the glow of the light hitting other objects. And that's where you're going to really use the Gaussian blur to blur stuff out, because you're going to kind of go a little overboard with it. So like the light from here, light from there, light from here was like hitting that maybe. This one, you're going to go overboard with this one, I would say. And this is kind of like the reflect light. I've never taken an art class before. I took one when I was like in elementary school, I guess, but I don't know the proper terms or the science, or I guess it is kind of a science behind all this stuff. I just kind of do it. And I really should learn. But I just kind of do it as I go. So that's all of our reflect light. And again, it looks kind of fine without it. We're going to blur the hell out of it though. Just so it's a little softer. Yeah. Something like that. And then kind of turn the opacity down, or kind of play with it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like to do with like skin tones and stuff, or just people. Throw this on there, and then we'll again switch it to glow. Very subtle, but makes a difference, I think. Again, it's all right. I'm not a pro. This took me, how long have I been recording? 30 minutes for a panel that's completely finished. So that's like faster than you would normally do it. And it looks very distinct, and it looks a lot different from a normal background, I would say. So go ahead and find what you like doing. Especially the lights can be a lot more pinpoint to where they're at. But I say just for the backgrounds like these colors, just go crazy. I think that's what makes it a lot more fun, and it makes everything a lot more fun, I guess. But that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any suggestions for me, or tell me I suck at drawing, or have any other ideas you want me to do in future videos, please let me know. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or about anything else, feel free to let me know as well. Thanks for watching.